Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. The preseason has started. We've got a lot of things going on around the NBA to update as well, including, that's right, get ready for the Simmons siren. We'll talk a little bit Ben Simmons. We'll talk about Michael Porter Jr., talk about a few of the teams that played in preseason. In fact, why don't we start off there? The Lakers and Nets kicked off preseason play. Keith, I know you got to catch a bit of that game. It was a preseason game. It was pretty sloppy.
Yeah, it was Lakers and Nets, right? Yeah. They were, it was parts of both of those teams. I think Anthony Davis was probably the only headliner who played in the game. And the main takeaways for me was he looked good physically. He was moving fine. LaMarcus Aldridge looked pretty good physically. So that's good to see. And then from there, yeah, it was the Cam Thomas show for the Nets and the Malik Monk show for the Lakers. And that's probably the only time we'll say that this year for those teams in a game against each other. But yeah, it was fun. You know, it was fun just to have an actual basketball game to look at and break down.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a good time, and we've got a lot more games coming up this evening. In fact, a lot of teams are playing. What did we said? Like 10 games tonight. So preseason, nine it is. I was off by one. So preseason is underway, and that means the regular season is right around the corner. We can start breaking down what teams are looking like. So that's a lot of fun. Plus, we do have quite a bit of news going on right now. I guess let's
go back to the game real quick, if we can for a minute. Yep. I'm seeing a lot of people super excited about Cam Thomas, and that's kind of what we do, right? We overreact to the preseason.
We don't do that.
You know that, right? Yeah, no, of course not. But I'm struggling to see how he cracks that rotation. I don't see where there's going to be minutes for him. They're just so deep, that Nets team, that it's like he's got to be the fourth, fifth guy on the depth chart at that like two guard position. So maybe on nights where people are out or guys are resting, but on a regular night tonight, I just don't see it in his rookie year.
Well, look, he stands out as a very legit, very talented scorer. And we saw it in Summer League too. And to see a continuation of that here in preseason, I think that's a great sign for the Nets. But you do make a good point in terms of skill set. The last thing the Nets need is another scorer, right? I mean, if he was this top flight defender, we'd be saying minutes are coming his way. But his main thing happens to be the main thing of their three stars as well. So that's the challenge. But I do think just in terms of value, where they drafted him, he really looks like he could hit for them if this continues on. Again, it's preseason, so take it with a grain of salt. Let's see what that looks like at the regular season. You're right, the path to minutes could be a little bit of a challenge, but moving forward, it's still, I think, a value pick for the Nets.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's no knock on the pick or Cam Thomas. I'm trying to temper expectations maybe a little bit, because I've seen a lot of people being like, this guy might be a rotation player day one. I just a quick glance at it. So whether you call Irving or Harden the off guard, you got one of those two. Then you've got Bruce Brown. You have DeAndre Bembry, assuming he makes the team, if he makes the team. But you also have Joe Harris plays a lot in that kind of off-ball guard role there. You've also got Patty Mills will probably be playing a lot of that alongside Irving and Harden at times, or Irving or Harden probably. You've got Javon Carter just as another on-ball guard. So I struggle to see how he cracks that rotation. But, it's great. And I think him being able to come in and spend a year apprenticing behind James Harden is really good, or couple years, or however many years this is, because I think what that does is his probably hole in his game is the playmaking piece right now, and that gives him that opportunity to really kind of learn that playmaking piece and start to figure it out. So I think that's good overall for him. Let's not go crazy. Like I saw some people like, I'm gonna bump him up in my fantasy league, and I was like, oh, that's probably a wasted pick if you do that one.
I think that where I'm at is it's a good selection. He's a talented player, but because of the roster he's on, we may not see him a lot this season. Like if he was on the Orlando Magic, right, Keith? If he was on your hometown team right now, we'd be talking a lot more about him getting regular minutes this season, right? But the path to minutes is just not really there for the Nets. However, he could wind up being a nice fallback for those nights when, hey, load management rears its ugly head and Kyrie's out or Harden is out or whoever's out, right? Then you could see him really pop up and do something. But I think it's going to be pretty sporadic with him this season, and that's fine. That's totally fine for a rookie. Give him time to develop and just be happy. Just don't see him not getting minutes and assume that what we're seeing right now simply isn't the truth. Just give him the breathing room, and we'll see where this leads us.
Yeah, and the same with Daron Sharp, their other first-round pick, the big man. He's got a lot of bigs in front of him now because they've got Aldridge and Millsap and Claxton and Blake Griffin, and then James Johnson was added this offseason. You've got KD, who plays a lot at the 4, so Sharp's probably going to take a year. But if for the Nets, what's really good, though, is let's say those guys do show steady development. When you're a year or two down the line, maybe you don't need to spend a lot of money adding more guys as the rest of the team is more expensive because they're basically, let's be optimistic. They re-sign Harden. They do re-sign Kyrie or Kim to a contract extension. However, those conversations go between those two and Kevin Durant, you're at the salary cap with just those 3 guys under contract. So they're going to be a wildly expensive team. So hitting on their first round picks is big. So just more of a kind of a conversation about that. And that could be a good reason to still keep an eye on Sekou Doumbouya, who looked pretty good at the end of this game. It got good. I mean, it was a preseason game with garbage time for most of the fourth quarter. So that got really wonky.
It was a G League game for the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
it really that's what you saw was G League guys out there.
Well, from the Nets side, from the Lakers, they're a little too deep. They couldn't. They struggled a little to even pull that full card until it was pretty late in the game, just because they've got so many quality NBA guys. But yeah, I mean, I'm not taking anything from this result of this game by any means, nor will you from any preseason game, but just a couple quick observations there. Now we can get into the news.
All right, let's do it. Let's hold off on the Simmons siren for just a moment, and let's talk Andrew Wiggins. He relented. He's going to get vaccinated, and obviously sigh of relief from Warriors fans because that means he will be eligible to play in their home games.
Yeah, it just without getting into the vaccine stuff there, other than he got it, this is huge for them basketball-wise because they're not going to have Klay Thompson probably till the holidays, maybe even a little bit after, it sounds like. So having Wiggins is big. He's really played well for them. I think people are still maybe stuck a little bit on it's Andrew Wiggins. How good is this guy? And those kind of things. But it's, is he a max contract player? No, he's absolutely not. But that's water under the bridge. You can't go back and change that. So now it's about him playing as well as he can, and he's played really well for them. So now they've got a pretty deep team. They're another piece of news as well as Avery Bradley sounds like maybe has the leg up on claiming their final roster spot. He's in a competition with several other guys. Came out that Gary Payton II, who they really like, but he's dealing with a hernia surgery that he had recently, so he's not full go. And then you've got Michael Mulder is there. He could maybe get waived and then re-signed to a 2-way. They have a 2-way spot open. So we'll see what they do at the end of that bench. But this is a Warriors team that the last couple years has been really hampered by their lack of depth because they just haven't had it when Curry went down. And I mean, you lose Curry, Green, and Thompson. I don't care. Unless you're Team USA, you're probably struggling to replace them. But now some of their young guys who got force-fed minutes, like Jordan Poole, Juan Toscano-Anderson, those guys are playing better. They're ready to take on bigger roles, especially Jordan Poole. I really like that kid. Watch out for him. He's going to be very, very good for this team. Probably going to start while Thompson is out and then working his way back. But they have quality depth now, and that's big for them because as you go through the bumps and bruises of the season, they haven't had that the last couple of years.
And I think Avery Bradley makes some sense for them too, just in terms of being a defensive stopper on the perimeter, particularly with Klay Thompson out. And he's the kind of guy that can pester opposing point guards. And I think that's something that's really important in today's NBA. So when I'm looking at the list, it makes sense that the Warriors would be leaning towards Bradley over a guy like Gary Payton II or Galloway or Jordan Bell, right? That to me is it's the sensible decision as long as Bradley is healthy. So no surprises there. Michael Porter Jr. Keith, you had some contract details on Michael Porter Jr. I know when this first came out, everybody's minds were blown at how much money he was getting. But of course, we know that's not quite the truth in terms of what he's actually getting.
Yeah, so this one is a little bit complicated. So he's signing a full rookie scale extension, 5 years, 25% of the salary cap. It can jump to 28 or 30%. We see this as relatively common. This happens with a handful of guys. So if he hits certain markers this season, he would have to hit them, he'll jump. So that's likely, we don't have the full details on what causes the jump, but that's probably going to be an all NBA selection or something along those lines. We'll bump him up to the upper tiers. So that's probably not going to happen. So it's probably going to be a 25%. But here's the key thing. The final season, no matter what percentage of the cap the first year salary is based off of, is only guaranteed for $12 million. Now it jumps up to being $17 million guaranteed if at any time through this year, through the 25-26 season, so that'll be the 4th year of his extension before that final year, if he's selected to an all-star game. Then, and it's only one all-star game. It doesn't have to be every year or anything like that. One time.
Okay.
That'll jump to $17 million. Then it jumps to fully guaranteed if he's not waived 48 hours before the moratorium. So that's pretty standard language on a non-guarantee. It's usually right around the moratorium time. Or if he makes 2 all-star teams during that same period, this season through 25-26, or if he's named MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, or gets named to any of the All-NBA or All-Defensive teams, and that's only once, or if the Nuggets win the NBA championship and he plays in a set amount of games in that time. So there's
a path there.
Yeah, there's a path there. He's got to keep improving. The team could improve. Quite frankly, he's really got to stay healthy to hit that. But yeah, it's interesting. The Nuggets did well with this beyond it being you could have gone with maybe a team option on the end there. That's pretty rare in an extension. We haven't seen one of those, especially in a max deal, in forever. But yeah, they protected themselves at the end. So if he's not healthy or he struggles, they're protected at the end there, at least as well as you can be. And that $12 million, that's gonna be less than half the salary. It'll be probably right around a third-ish of what his final year salary will be that year. So they can get out of that fairly cheaply if they need to, if everything goes wrong, or if it goes really right, then you lock in for what the amount would have been anyway.
So that makes a lot of sense. It obviously offers that protection there. And for everybody who is freaking out about the dollar amount, obviously it's not quite that high unless he's really good. And if that case, you want him on that dollar amount anyway.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And there was a lot of the 207 million reporting out there early. That's the full 30% max if he meets that and then gets fully guaranteed and all that stuff. So that's pretty unlikely that that's going to be where this lands. But hey, good for the Nuggets for saying, hey man, you come out and you lights out superstar player this year, then hey, you achieve it and we're happy to pay it.
All right. Well, should we do it, Keith? Should we sound the Simmons siren? Uh-oh.
There it is, Simmons siren.
Oh, Ben Simmons, where are you? We know you're not in Philadelphia with the 76ers, not going to report with them. But the Indiana Pacers now popping up as a potential landing spot for Ben Simmons makes some sense. They've got a number of those mid-range contracts to offer, and which is something that could be really important to the 76ers, win now pieces. Not just picks, but guys that they could bring in. Obviously, you'd probably start a deal around Malcolm Brogdon, just in terms of skill set, being a guy who can kind of step in to that lead ball handler role in Philadelphia, and then add to that, and they've got plenty of other contracts that you can add in. So the Pacers do make some sense. And from the Pacers side of things, look, they're not going to be a free agent destination. So for them to go and get a guy who could wind up being still a star or a top talent in the NBA makes a little bit of sense for them as well.
Absolutely does. What we've been saying all along, the Pacers, the Cavaliers, the Timberwolves, the teams that can attract that star talent in free agency make sense because this is a way to go land a guy who, even if you don't like his game, and maybe you're right in that with the way he plays at the end, even if you're there, it is, he is still the most versatile defensive player in the league, maybe the best defensive player in the league. He's still an elite playmaker, and maybe out of the limelight, he looks a little better. As we've said, I feel like a million times now, 33 million is a big number, so it's not an easy number to move. That either means you've got to have a really big contract going back Philly's way, or you got to get there with a couple. And that's where the Pacers check those boxes. Like you said, Brogdon's a win now guy. Now we know fairly publicly, and I think very reputably, reports are they already offered Brogdon for him and were turned down. But that was months ago. It's, things have changed considerably. So, if you're Philly, if you could come away with Malcolm Brogdon, let's say TJ Warren, and a couple draft picks, you've done pretty well, I think, in that kind of trade. And if you're the Pacers, you kind of got to look at it as, all right, so Simmons replaces Brogdon. We've got a couple other guards we like already. We really like our rookie, Chris Duarte. We didn't get anything out of TJ Warren last year because he was hurt. Maybe this is the way to move this forward and figure out where we go. And then you probably still have a pretty good competitive team. And I know some people have talked about, well, what if it was Miles Turner or Domantas Sabonis? I don't know that makes sense for Philly.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure how that comes together and fits with either one of those guys. But yeah, I mean, there's interest there, I think, clearly, and there are moves that can be made that make sense for both sides, just with the setup they could do. So I'm interested to see kind of where this one comes together here.
Yeah, if the bigs are involved in any way, whether it's Sabonis or Turner, I would think that's where you're looping in a third team, and then you're finding a different lane because they don't really make as much sense for Philadelphia. Brogdon, of course,
no, not with Embiid.
No, Brogdon definitely makes some sense. I wonder what Philadelphia's appetite is to take back an injured player, because we know the Pacers have a few of those. If that could be a factor in these discussions, but obviously nothing's done until it's done. But Indiana really does make a lot of sense, and it's another location, kind of like Minnesota, where I wonder if it would really be just a good thing for Simmons himself, just to get out of the spotlight a little bit, go to Pawnee, go to a place where you don't get quite as much media coverage, and just get to go and do your thing, right? Especially under a coach like Rick Carlisle, who's tremendous. This could wind up being a win-win-win scenario, and it could really work out all around.
Yeah, and just to be clear and give credit, that came from Brian Windhorst on The Jump. He talked about Indiana. Keith Pompey of the Philadelphia Inquirer, he's been covering Philly for a long time. He mentioned that there are several teams that are still really engaged on trading for Simmons. Recently have had conversations. Pacers are among them, but also Cleveland, Detroit, Minnesota, San Antonio, and Toronto. Toronto, they were rumored with Pascal Siakam, sounds like where it started, and Toronto wasn't interested with doing that. And then the Detroit one becomes interesting because that's not one we've necessarily heard before, and they're kind of in the midst of that rebuilding. Yeah, if you're Philly, you'd probably love to snag Jeremy Grant and bring him back to Philadelphia if you could, but I'm not sure if that's anything Detroit wants to do. So yeah, but that one's again kind of interesting. Not a place that's gonna go get a guy. And the Spurs have been thrown out there quite a bit. The Spurs, their challenge is they could definitely deliver the lead ball handler that Philly needs to replace Simmons, because they've got
a bunch of
those guys kind of in spades. But it starts to become, where are we going if you're Philly, because those guys aren't necessarily all-star level guys, and it starts to turn into, is that an absolute must-have for them? But here we sit, October 4th, preseason game number 1 tonight for the Philadelphia 76ers, and Ben Simmons still not there.
I can only imagine. Like the 76ers fans obviously are not very happy with Ben Simmons right now.
Nope.
And they're going to have a place to vocalize that displeasure once these games start up. So that'll be interesting. Is
there any part of you that just for the like the morbid curiosity of it wants to see him return and play like a home game in Philly's uniform just to see like what the reaction is.
What, like have him come down out of the rafters or something like that? Like
No,
Sting
not
back
like
in the
that.
day,
I mean,
like super dramatic, like just appear.
We don't have
and
to go all WWE with it, but just like he's like, all right, hey, I'm not going to give up this $8 million. He shows up tomorrow or whatever, and then he plays. I just like we see this regularly in the NBA. Player leaves a team, feelings get hurt, whatever, and the fans boo the player every time they touch the ball. I don't know that we've ever seen that with a home team.
Yeah, that's true.
So that'd be kind of interesting to see how that one might play out. I admit it, I'm petty enough to say, like, I wouldn't mind seeing how that plays out.
No, I mean, and it's happened before. I mean, we've seen where players request a trade and they get
sure.
booed. I remember back in the day when Kobe wanted to be traded and him getting booed, but then he started making baskets and everybody started cheering, right? Like, I think that's
this is Philly, though.
Philly. It's a little different. So I guess you're right. That would be interesting to see. Quick note that just popped up from Detroit. We've got Cade Cunningham rolled his ankle and we're unsure on the timeline. No timeline for his return because we're not allowed to have nice things, apparently.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah.
That's not how you want to start the year.
No.
That's a bummer.
Yeah. Definitely not.
Oh, well.
Definitely not.
Well, it is what it is, I guess.
One piece that we missed on the vaccination story was the NBA did agree to terms with the NBPA on salary loss to players not vaccinated. They get 91.6th of their salary is deducted per game missed.
Yeah, so let me explain that very kind of briefly with this. It is how they this was all negotiated because this doesn't exist in the CBA of being not vaccinated and missing games and all this stuff. So that's not a thing. So just to explain what they did, they negotiated this, and it sounds like basically how they came together on this was with, we are going to assume 41 home games missed, plus some preseason games, plus some playoff games if the team was to make the playoffs. Plus, on top of that, it's all the practices that get missed as well. Because normally it's like a guy gets suspended for a day, they miss 145th of their check because that's one day out of the 145 days or so in the season. So this was negotiated to cover the fact that they're not going to miss all of it, but they're going to miss a pretty big chunk of days and all those things. Because it's important to know Kyrie Irving, Andrew Wiggins, up until he got vaccinated, they weren't able to be, they weren't able to be there even for practices because they practice in the same cities that have the same mandates, ordinances, laws, whatever you want to call it, that restrict that ability. And just something new to add to it, I guess, or it's not news from us, but like news for us to talk about on the show is, there's a belief around the league that Kyrie Irving will get vaccinated. Most people believe some believe he may already have been vaccinated. And he's like, it's Kyrie Irving, so nothing can be simple there. So, so we'll see, what happens with that one. But we know Wiggins is there. I've also heard from multiple people in my conversations, they think they're going to get real close to 100%. In the league. We did the math a couple shows back where it sounds like a big number still to have 10%, but that's only really about 25, 30 guys.
Well, it isn't even, it's 5% now, right? Didn't they update and say we're at 95?
Yeah,
so now it's down to 5%.
Exactly. So now we're probably down to, my guess is somewhere in that anywhere from 5 to 15 players. And some of those players may get that exemption status that Wiggins had tried for and those kind of things. So that's kind of where we're at.
So it could end up being not really that big. As much as it's been a big deal over the last week or so, could end up being not really a huge deal at the end of the day by the time the season does start up. We've got a couple of players who were waived by teams. The Spurs waiving Eric Coleman and Nate Renfro. The Knicks waiving Luca Vildoza. So you've got, look, we're going to start seeing stuff like this. We're going to start seeing moves that are made, players who get shuffled to the G League, things like that. Rosters have got to be cut down to 15 before the season starts. So just expect this is coming. You're going to hear a lot of different players getting cut around the NBA.
Yeah, the Holman and Renfro deals in San Antonio clearly designed to get players to the Austin Spurs of the G League. The idea there is we sign them, then you waive them, but now you were the last team they were in, so you get their affiliate player rights. They get generally a bonus in salary, anywhere from 15 to 50K usually. If they go and stick in the G League, those two players in particular likely would do that. So that's what you're going to see here. The Vildoza one, that's a little interesting. They had hopes for him. He's a guard out of Argentina. They thought he might be able to contribute there, and I think when they signed him, it was very much a mess at point guard for the Knicks, and they were hoping get him in. The problem is he never played last year, and then he showed up this year with an injured ankle and never got in there. There was reporting out of New York over the weekend that it might have been him and Kevin Knox, former 9th overall pick, fighting for that last spot. And then, clearly looks like Knox might still get in there. But the other thing with Kevin Knox, this I thought was a little noteworthy. Not entirely unexpected, but there have been no extension conversations. So for a player who's extension eligible, that was the former 9th pick, to have no extension conversations, that's kind of writing on the wall there.
Especially for his position in the NBA right now, right? To be a wing and
a big wing,
a big wing, and not have somebody. It's not like he's a traditional back to the basket center, right? Like his position is in high demand around the NBA. So that's very telling.
Yeah, this is a guy who's lost almost all of his playing time since his first year, went down a little bit his second year, and then it went way down last year as the Knicks improved and became a good team. And he put up numbers as a rookie, just as a volume guy, because his efficiency was horrible with that. So yeah, and my lasting memory of him, I can't remember if we were sitting next to each other or not for the Zion Williamson game at Summer League. We might not have been, but where Zion ragdolled him for that rebound.
I came into town the next day, so I was not. But we talked about it. We talked about it that day when I got there to the arena.
I have never heard a press section collectively cackle in glee, and it was nothing about Kevin Knox. It was just that was Zion's first moment where they went for the same rebounds. Zion basically was like playing with your child in the driveway, ripped it away from him, threw him across the court, just with the force of pulling the ball away, and slammed it home. And everybody paused, and then the arena exploded in noise, and everybody in the media section just cackled with absolute joy at holy crap, this is what Zion could be. So hopefully better things to come for Kevin Knox, and that's not my lasting memory.
And that's not joy over something bad happening to Kevin Knox. That was joy over hey, Zion could really be that good.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and signs of that last year, right? Yes. Hopefully he is back healthy and ready to
go. Last thing we need to get to, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Still dealing with knee soreness.
That one, I can't give you a
thumbs up. No,
that was bad.
Yeah, that's if we had a cricket sound effect, that's what we should have played right then. But no, Giannis still dealing with knee soreness from his hyperextension suffered in Game 4 against the Atlanta Hawks. That happened June 29th, and here we are, and it's still bugging him. Look, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world. Doesn't mean that he's going on the injured list or anything like that. But it's not a great way to start the season, still dealing with an injury from last season.
Yeah, and that's the scary part, right? And now he did say he feels good and he's ready to go and he's going to play. This all was told to a television station in Greece that he's still got that knee soreness. So it's just something we've got to kind of look through, and we'll see where that goes. My guess is we're going to see Milwaukee be extremely conservative with him to begin the year, and they're not going to push him at all. It's just probably likely going to be he will just kind of he'll play, but they're not going to push overly hard. I think they know, barring something that gets really crazy, they're the second best team in the East, or maybe the best team, depending on how the Nets approach the regular season. But they're not gonna. They learned a couple years ago, pushing to win 60 plus games doesn't necessarily do you any good. It's better to be healthy and ready to go in the postseason. So yeah, we'll see where that comes. But yeah, it's we're gonna see what happens with Giannis here early in the year. So hopefully he's just fine and can go. And if his game 6 performance is anything, I think he might be okay.
Yep, absolutely. So Adam Silver, go into settings, turn off injuries, please. Turn those things off. I don't want to have to keep talking about injuries. We already got Cade Cunningham and Giannis on today's show. Let's keep it injury-free. We got a bunch of games tonight. I don't want to hear about any more injuries. Let's keep everybody healthy.
Yeah, so nine games on tap tonight, guys. We are going to do a kind of a pilot show of our wrap-up show that we're going to do. I mean, we'll see when we get that rolling here, but it'll happen some point in the preseason. We're going to run you through as quick as we can with some context as well on what we saw in the previous night's games. But yeah, 9 games on schedule tonight. There we go. 7 o'clock tonight as we record. This is only a couple hours away, so I'm pretty excited. We'll sit down and be able to watch basketball that has some meaning, I guess, is the best way to put that, at least.
Yeah, I mean, it's not meaningless, but it also isn't everything, right? It's not what you see happen in preseason games. You just don't take it and say, oh, okay, that's the truth, because really it's a tiny sample size for the start of a new season, and preseason can be a little fluky. Like the Stars don't give 100% in preseason. Like you can see, they're going in saying, don't get hurt, don't get hurt, don't get hurt, rather than I'm going to drop 40 on this guy tonight, right? That's the way they approach it. So it's important to note, but still, you are going to see some things that will translate to the regular season, and it's always fun to at least get to see basketball out on the floor, regardless.
No doubt. Yep. Can't wait.
All right, everybody. So make sure that you're subscribed to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. Turn on those notifications so you get notified every time we have a new video coming out. Again, we will be doing some game breakdowns as well, so that's coming. We'll let you guys know when that will be. But again, hit that subscribe button, right? Turn on those notifications, and don't forget to like this video as well. Till next time, stay safe and see you.